Hey kids, this is Johnny Tremain continued, and it's by Esther Forbes. I'm going to be reading it aloud, and it's illustrated by Lynd Ward, and this is going to be for section 2. I'm sorry if these are out of order. This is still chapter 1. And I'm trying to provide a little bit of comprehension help because this story is pretty challenging, and I just want everybody to be able to understand it. So what's happening just basically in section 1 is that we're kind of getting introduced to the boys and the characters, and so I'll try to show you a little character map of the people who are involved in the story, if I can grab that real quick. But I'm going to go ahead and start section 2. Mr. Lapham, as befitted his venerable years and his dignity as master of the house, sat in an armchair at the head of the table. He was a peaceful, kind, remote old man. Although his daughter-in-law was always nagging him to collect bills, finish work when promised, and discipline his apprentices, nothing she said seemed to touch him. He did not even bother to listen. His dull, groping eyes lingered kindly over his boys as they trooped in for breakfast. "Good morning, Dove, Dusty. Good morning, Johnny." "Good morning, sir." He took his time blessing the meal. He was a deacon at the Cockerell Church and very pious. And pious being one of our words that we're talking about this week, okay, at least for the first few chapters. So showing reverence for God or sacred. So he's a very pious man. Breakfast was good, although no more than a poor artisan could afford. Milk and ale, gruel, that sounds good, sausages and cornbread. Everything was plentiful and well cooked. The kitchen was as clean or cleaner than many of those in the great houses. Every member of the household had a clean shirt or petticoat. Mrs. Lapham was a great manager, but she cared nothing for genteel manners and was the first to laugh at Dorcas's, "If it please you, mother, just a touch more maple syrup for me." Remember, Dorcas is always trying to be elegant. "Gimme that there syrup pitcher," was good enough for her. So Mrs. Lapham, Dorcas's mother, is fine with kind of a slangy approach. "Gimme that there syrup pitcher." When the meal was over, Mr. Lapham told Madge to hand him the family Bible. "Johnny, I'm going to ask you to read to us today." Of the 3 boys, only Johnny read easily and well. His mother had lived long enough to see to that. Dove stumbled shamefully. Dusty usually had the first chapter of Genesis, so that by reading the same thing over and over, he might eventually learn. Madge and Dorcas never cared even to try to read. Mrs. Lapham could not so much as write her name. "Book larnin'," she declared. "Scalded no pigs." So basically she's saying, I'm doing cooking, and scalding pigs is what I do. Book learning isn't going to teach me how to do it. That's what she's saying. Scylla was so anxious to learn and teach Isana that whenever Johnny read, she leaned over the book and shaped the words to herself as he said them. They sat beside each other at table. To help her, Johnny always kept a finger on the lines as he read, kind of like I like to do to keep myself in the right place. Johnny now opened the book, keeping it between himself and Scylla. "Where, sir, shall I read?" Mr. Lapham's selections for his boys were sometimes designed to point out some fault in a member of his household, especially in the reader. Dove was always being asked to read about sluggards and going to ants. Because remember, in the previous section, Dove is described as being quite lazy. Johnny was told where to begin in Leviticus. "Ye shall make you no idols, nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image." And this is his thoughts. What was old master driving at? Couldn't a silversmith put a dragon's snout on a chocolate pot? Soon the surging roll of the words, the pleasure of the sound of his voice, coming so clearly out of his mouth, made him stop looking for possible object lessons in the text. So he gets caught up reading so much so that he forgets what he's really reading. Scylla was leaning over him, breathing hard in her efforts to keep up. Mrs. Lapham sat agape. Soon she'd be saying it was just like having a preacher live with them to hear Johnny Tremain read Holy Writ. Finish with the 19th verse. And I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven as iron and your earth as brass. Turn to Proverbs 11, 2nd verse. When pride cometh, then cometh shame, but with the lowly is wisdom. Proverbs 16, 18th. Pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. Now, close the book. Stand up and expound to us all the meaning of God's word. Johnny stood up. His skin was thin, and he could feel himself flush. That means it's kind of embarrassing for him to stand up. So the old gentleman was after him for his pride again, was he? So here's Johnny. It is all another way of saying, God's way of saying, that pride goeth before a fall. Yes, and why? Because God doesn't like pride. Johnny sounded sulky. Do you think God would like you? Not especially. Dusty was the first to snicker. What does God like? Humble people, said Johnny wrathfully. He sends punishment to people who are too proud. Now, Johnny, I want you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Johnny Tremain. I, Johnny Tremain. Swear from this day onward. Swear from this day onward. To walk more humbly and modestly before God and man. To walk more humbly and modestly before God and man. Just because some folks are not so smart, the old master gave Dove and Dusty a pitying glance, it's no reason why other folks should go around rubbing their noses in their own stupidities. Either Dove or Dusty kicked Johnny under the table. Madge and Dorcas were giggling. Mrs. Lapham was already scraping the trenchers clean, getting on with her work. She did not hold much by Grandpa's soul searchings. The master, followed by Dove and Dusty, left for the shop. Johnny heard Scylla give an exaggeratedly pious sigh. He stopped. When the meek inherit the earth, she said, I doubt Johnny gets as much as one divot of sod. This was too much for Johnny. He turned on the little girls. When they do, he stormed, Syl, you can just about keep your mouth shut until then. You know, you did look pretty funny standing up there and saying all those humble things Grandpa told you to. Isana was almost jumping out of her pinafore in glee. Johnny's mad, she chanted. Johnny's mad. Yes, murmured Scylla, looking at him critically. You're right, baby dear. His ears are red. That always means he's mad. Johnny's ears are red, squealed Isana. Johnny stalked out of the kitchen as stiff-legged as a fighting tomcat. His ears were scarlet. That's a really dark red. So remember, he loves the teasing that goes on between the girls and him, but he's not liking it right now. It's like special attention, but this is not good attention. So they're making fun of him because Mr. Lapham pointed out his flaw. So again, the characters, see if I can get my new one here and point out a couple of important things. So in our notes, you should have that Johnny is talented, but he is prideful and arrogant. There are good things with being proud. You can be self-satisfied. It makes you brave and confident to try new things. You can be happy with yourself. You can carry that pride into new areas, and it helps you with your self-worth. These are great things, but there are negative effects of pride when you have too much, and that is a feeling of too much power, kind of the way he lords it over Dove and Dusty, feeling that you're better than others. Your overconfidence can lead to accidents, and we're talking about like skateboarding tricks, and I'm so good, I can totally go down these stairs here, and then and broken limbs. So you can even become snobby, cocky, bossy, rude. You can be arrogant, and nobody likes someone who is arrogant. And the arrogance is the feeling of superiority. Flaccid, these are words that were all in the first couple of sections. Without energy, that was Dove in bed. The crucible, it's going to be a furnace tool that used to melt metals. It has to be made of a metal that can be heated up to a high enough temperature to melt the metal inside of it. And then parasitic, in the way that it's used in the book, taking from someone and doing nothing to earn or deserve it, like a tick. And then just a quick look at, again, another word, pious, showing reverence for God or sacred. And then a look at the characters and kind of how they are all related, their ages, and how they connect with Mr. Lapham. So Mr. Lapham is a silversmith. He's older. He's a pious man. Mrs. Lapham is not his daughter, even though she has the same name. She was married to his son, and his son has since died. So when they refer to the girls as the poor fatherless girls, she and the son probably lived there. He died for some reason. People died all the time when they were young a long time ago. Then we have all four girls, Madge, Dorcas, Scylla, and Isana, and their ages, 18, 16, 14, and then I think it's 8. Somebody looked that up. And just, kind of their personality. Madge is a great hard worker. She's a bigger girl. Dorcas kind of the same, but is so silly, and she flowers her face. She can be a hard worker, but when she's not trying to be too elegant. Scylla is actually supposed to marry Johnny eventually, and that was kind of the agreement with Mr. Lapham and then his daughter-in-law to have Johnny take over the silversmithing business with his granddaughter as the wife. So even though they're only 14, this is something that is arranged for the future. Okay, so Scylla is a good, helpful kid. She loves to tease Johnny with her little sister, Isana. And then Isana is the one who is so sickly, she can hardly keep anything down. So to look at her, you wouldn't guess that all the things she can't keep down is the line, I think, at the end of one of those sections. And but she's so angelic, and people just love to look at her. Now, Mr. Lapham has 3 apprentices, Dove, Dusty, and Johnny. Dove is the oldest, but he is, as the author writes, kind of useless. He doesn't want to do much. He doesn't work really hard. And the relationship between him and Johnny is so adversarial that it almost is like this self-fulfilling prophecy where Johnny teases Dove for being lazy, so Dove is more lazy to annoy Johnny even more. So it's just, they just are constantly at each other and not in a good way. And then there's Dusty, who worships Johnny, and he kind of pities Dove. He's capable, like when Johnny says, "Look sharp, Dusty," and then he will do his best to look sharp because he really admires Johnny. He knows, everybody knows, that Johnny is so talented. He's talented with his hands. He is an excellent silversmith. He has a really good way of looking at something and then shaping the silver to be exactly what it's supposed to be in the right proportion. He's a go-getter. He's smart. He's almost the boss of the house. But the big problem with him is that he is so arrogant and he's very bossy. So anyway, these are the characters, and hopefully you can get these all into your notes. It will help if you can refer back to this as we introduce more and more characters. See you on the next section. I'm going to just do one section at a time. See you on the next one. Bye.